Good day, everyone. For today's session, I'll be discussing the final part of the topic. By implementing a system of hazard identification and risk control, you can prevent workplace injuries and diseases. In our industry, food safety is one of the most important areas of risk management. And as well as guests trust us to serve them safe and clean food. And even one mistake can harm people or damage the business reputation. That's why we need to follow the three basic steps. First, we need to identify hazards. Think about conditions or work activities that could put your employees or guests at risk. Now, hazards are anything in the food service process that can make food unsafe. And this may be biological, like, for example, bacteria, viruses, chemical, cleaning agents, pesticides, and physical, hair, glass, metal pieces, or any foreign object that is or that are not intended to be in the food. Next, we have assess the risk. Once you have identified a hazard, you need to evaluate the risk associated with it. Now, once hazards are identified as well, we must evaluate how likely they are to happen and how serious the outcome would be. For example, a raw chicken juice dripping onto the salad ingredients, which possess high risk because it can cause food poisoning like salmonella. Another is like a small piece of plastic from packaging in food. It possesses medium risk because it could cause choking to the guest, and as well as using too much cleaning chemical on tables without rinsing. Like it possesses high risk because it could cause chemical poisoning. And lastly, we have control the risk. Now, once you've identified hazards and assessed the risk, look for ways to control them because the goal is to prevent foodborne illness and protect guests by controlling hazards. In food service, controlling risk often means following strict hygiene and safety practices. For example, you need to store a raw meat separately from ready to eat food. You need to keep hot food hot above 60 degrees and cold food cold below 5 degrees. As well as regularly, you need to clean and sanitize kitchen surfaces and utensils. Now, let's talk about the ways to control food safety risk. There are three main ways on how to control food safety risk. First, we have engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment or PPE. First, for engineering controls, these are physical changes in equipment or kitchen design to improve safety. Now, for example, we have redesigning workstations or modifying equipment to make it safer or more ergonomic, as well as installing refrigerators and freezers with accurate temperatures, using color coded chopping boards like green for vegetables, red for meat, blue for fish to prevent cross contamination. Number two, we have administrative controls. Administrative controls, mainly we're talking about the policies and procedures about that particular dining area or let's say kitchen. So these are changes in the way work is being organized, scheduled, and managed. And for example, setting cleaning schedules for the kitchen and dining areas, training staff on food handling, hygiene, and proper cooking temperatures, as well as having clear rules in food storage, or let's say supply storage. For example, implementing FIFO or FIFO, which stands for first in and first out, requiring staff to report if they are sick to prevent spreading illness. And lastly, we have personal protective equipment or PPE. So PPE is what staff wear to protect food and themselves. It is not the first solution, but it adds an extra layer for safety. Example for this is wearing hairnet, caps, or masks to prevent hair or droplets from contaminating food, wearing gloves and aprons for handling ready-to-eat food, using non-slip shoes to prevent accidents in the kitchen, and as well as a heat-resistant gloves when handling hot trays or pans. Now, to summarize for this particular topic, by simply following these steps, we can keep food safe, or we can keep the food safe, we can protect the guest from illness, and we can also maintain the good reputation of the business. Now let's talk about the solutions for food hazards in food service. So when working in a kitchen or food service area, we don't just think about the food. We also need to think about the safety of workers. Now, if kitchen staff get injured or tired, they cannot prepare food properly. And this may lead to unsafe food handling or accidents that harm both staff and the guest. Now we have hazard number one, unnatural or awkward postures. So this happens when workers bend, reach, kneel, squat, or lift in an uncomfortable ways. And for example, a cook holding a large pot of soup awkwardly, or a worker stretching too far to get a heavy container from a high shelf. Now, how to address hazards? First, you need to use adjustable countertops or cutting boards so all workers can work at the right height. You need to install sinks that match workers' hip height. You need to store kitchen tools, pots, and pans at a height that even the shortest worker can reach easily. And also, you need to use tools with longer handles so workers don't have to bend or stretch too much. Now, hazard number two, standing in the same place for a long time. So in food service, workers often stand for hours in the same spot. For example, cooks or chefs standing at the same stove, the same area. We have our galley men or dishwashers standing in the sink for a long time. Now, for example, what are the risks here? Risk is mainly for leg pain, back pain, fatigue, and circulation problems, which can make workers tired and less careful when handling food. Now, how to address hazards. First, you need to place a thick rubber mats on the floor to make standing more comfortable, and you need to provide tools or small benches so workers can occasionally rest one leg or sit while performing some tasks. Hazard number three is about the heavy loads. So heavy loads, carrying or lifting heavy boxes, cases of drinks, or big pots of liquid is common in kitchen. Now, how to reduce the risk? First, you need to use carts or trolleys to move heavy items like ingredients or trash. We need to use equipment to help pour large containers of liquid instead of lifting them by hand. You need to store heavy items at waist or chest level so workers don't have to bend too low or reach too high. Hazard number four, that's forceful use of your hand muscles. So for this one, kitchen work often involves chopping, cutting, stirring, or gripping tools tightly. Now, the risk here is first in the hand, wrist, or shoulder injuries, especially if tools are uncomfortable to use. Now, how to reduce the risk or how to address hazards. First, use knives and utensils with large rubber coated handles for a better grip. Use lighter tools or carts to avoid carrying heavy loads by hand. Choose tools that allow workers to keep their wrists straight instead of bent. You need to grip tools and equipment with the whole hand, not just a few fingers. All right, and now we're down to the last part of the topic. Let's talk about fire hazard. So, fire hazard. Fire is one of the most dangerous risks in the kitchen, and it can happen when, first, food is left unattended on the stove. Flammable materials like, for example, cloth or paper are left near heat. Equipment is not turned off properly. Now, how to prevent kitchen fires? First, you need to keep kitchen equipment clean and well maintained. You need to unplug appliances when not in use. You need to install smoke detectors in or near the kitchen, and as well as never use metal containers in the microwave. Most importantly, never leave cooking food unattended. So, food safety is not only about keeping food clean, but also about making sure the kitchen is a safe place to work. Hazards like awkward postures, long hours of standing, heavy loads, and fire risk can cause accidents. And by using proper equipment, safe work practices, and preventive measures, we keep both workers and guests safe. And we ensure that the food is prepared in a safe and hygienic environment. So that's it for this topic. Again, please take note that this topic, this presentation, this discussion will be included in your exam. Thank you and much love. God bless.